So why do we need to block our tissue? And so what this does is this prevents non-specific binding of your antibody to the tissue or endogenous Fc receptors in your tissue. So we use protein blocking for this, and typically what is recommended by pretty much everyone is that you use the normal serum against the species of your secondary antibody was raised in. So for example, say you have a donkey anti-rabbit secondary antibody, you would then use normal donkey serum in order to block your samples. And serum is a really common blocking reagent because it actually contains antibodies that will bind to the non-specific sites. So that's why it's important that you use ones that your secondary was raised in. So you can use, if you don't have access to normal serum, you can also use BSA, so bovine serum albumin, which will be available, I imagine, in the majority of labs. We also recommend that you add triton here. So triton acts as a permeabilization agent, but also acts to help aid wetting the tissue as well. And one thing that's really important, and I'm sure most of you are aware, but it's also not commonly used, but just in case, do not use milk if you're looking at a biotin avidin detection system. This is because you will get a lot of high background due to the presence of biotin in milk. So really recommended not to use milk. If you don't have normal serum, then use BSA over milk. And so further blocking is that we want to look at blocking our endogenous enzymes. So this is really important if we're looking at chromogenic staining where you have an enzyme tagged secondary. So what this does is this quenches any endogenous enzyme activity that could cause high background and false positive signal. And one thing to note here is if you have an HRP tagged secondary, then you can block with H2O2, which is peroxidase, or if you have an alkaline phosphatase tagged secondary, then you can block with levamisole or acetic acid buffer. And one thing that we noticed is that when we're looking at FFPE slides, you actually don't need the peroxidase quenching step in the majority of your staining. And so what this means is peroxide can sometimes damage your tissue, and it's also just an added step. By skipping this, you are saving yourself time and also saving yourself any potential tissue damage. I would like to point out we've only done this for FFPE slides, and that if you're looking at frozen slides, you still can get quite a lot of high background enzyme activity, so it isn't recommended to skip this step. But like I said, if you want to save some time, you really can't see much difference here when we skip this quenching step.